before we start this episode, I just want to say a massive thank you. Oh my gosh. I checked my YouTube analytics today, and I posted a short a few days ago, 4 days ago at this point. 300 views, which is, it's a little bit crazy to think about. That's 300 people. That's crazy to me. And I just want to say a massive thank you. We've just passed 50 subscribers, which again, massive milestone for this channel. I never thought I'd be saying some of my content was getting hundreds of views in 4 days. That is unprecedented for this channel. So I just want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you, and enjoy the rest of the episode. Hello everyone, my name is VoidDoctor, and welcome back to another episode on the InfinityCraft server. And today we're starting off this episode in the lovely fountain square that we began construction of last episode, and I'm still really happy with how this place is coming together. And I think now that I put this little road here, connecting it to the rest of town, and also put these leaves on this main building right here, I think it's coming together quite nicely. And as well as doing all of that off camera, I've also just made a slight modification to the railings of this second tier of road here, this terrace, because before they were just solid blocks, and I didn't really think they looked like proper railings. I think the solid blocks still look cool here, but up there, I think the little stairs just look nicer. I don't know why, but they just look nicer to me. They have the little holes in them, making them look more like railings. But this episode is mainly going to be about just expanding the base with pretty much non-functional buildings, just purely decorative buildings, just to make it look nicer, because I have a lot of other plans for builds that I'd like to do that are now going to start being outside of Westhold. So I kind of want to get to a point in the next couple of episodes where Westhold feels like a project that I can put on hold for a while and just work on other things. So this episode, I really want to get this downtown area situated. And to begin that, I just want to lay out a few foundations just using wool. So I think I'm going to go grab a few stacks of wool and just start figuring out where I want to put buildings around here and what size I want them to be, things like that. Okay, so I've gotten a few just little plans laid out around here in red wool, and I think I want to start building this one up first, just because I like diagonal builds, and I think this will also fill in this space quite nicely, since this space really needs to be filled. It's just a giant open space right here, so just building up this foundation here will hopefully fill in the space a bit nicer than not a diagonal build, like just a square build or something. So that's generally my reasoning for building diagonal builds, is just because they fill in more space, and they also tend to match the curvature of roads a bit better. So it just makes more sense to have them in an area. So I'm just gonna build this up and have a few progress reports while I'm building it. Okay, so my whole thinking behind using this much more, I guess you could just say, it's a much more cobbled block palette, is because my thought is that the town probably started down here at the waterfront, since towns tend to start towards water sources. So a lot of or at least some of these buildings would be much older, so the stone would have a lot more time to cobble and just sort of wear away, which is what, in my eyes at least, that's what cobblestone looks like, is much more worn down, sort of kind of destroyed stone. So that's why, and then of course, a lot of these buildings would have probably been rebuilt, so a lot of these shops are probably newer, but like these buildings back here, these are probably much older buildings in this fountain square, and same with this fountain even. So that's why these buildings tend to look a lot more run down, or not run down, but just a lot older, is because they, in my eyes, this is a much older district of the town. Alright, folks, so I'm really liking how this little segmented wall look is coming together. I think the whole idea of sort of separating the walls with the fences, or just separating the different sections of walls with the fences, just looks cool, and it definitely provides some contrast. You know, you got the strip spruce with the dark oak fences intersecting it, so I think it looks nice. Now I'm just going to put a pretty simple roof on it. I just want to build a Just a pretty simple roof for this place. Nothing too fancy or complicated. Okay, so I'm actually extremely happy with how most of this building turned out, except for that bit. That bit's a bit weird, but other than that, the rest of the building came out quite nice, except for the interior. It's still feeling quite open and spacious, so that's either a pro or a con, depending on how you choose to see it. But the exterior of the building is quite nice, in my opinion. I think the walls, even though they're quite plain, you know, they're just stripped spruce, I think the fences sort of intersecting them looks nice, and the fence gates provide a bit of texture. So I'm really happy with how this building has come together, and I think I'm just going to throw some leaves on it before we go into a third-person time-lapse of me constructing the rest of these buildings. That's much better. Okay, so I am super happy with how this area is coming together down here. The whole docks area of Westhold is probably my favorite out of any part of the town so far, at least. I haven't really developed some parts of the town yet, but this is probably going to stay my favorite as I start to as I expand it. Probably not a ton more, but we'll expand it some. And just a little piece of information: I will eventually put interiors in these houses. It's probably not going to be today. Probably not going to be tomorrow. Not the next. It'll eventually come. Probably. But currently, I just think this area just feels so atmospheric. It feels like you're wandering around in like a medieval city, and you have these big houses towering around you with their roofs sort of overhanging the streets, and you get this, it's almost like a covered walkway around here, especially when you're walking around down here. Just feels like it's all very kind of closed in, which is the effect that I'm going for here, because it's like, you're trying to fit as many buildings as you can into one place, so these very closely fit together townhouses, or just very closely fit together buildings in general, do the job just fine. And even townhouses like this one, or this one isn't so much a townhouse, it's just a regular house, but still, it does quite a nice job of filling space without being too large. I forgot to put leaves on this one actually, but we'll do that later. However, the next thing I'd like to work on is a project that we started a few episodes ago, but I said that we'd continue working on, but I never really continued working on it, and that's the docks. I've worked on it some with, these builds out here, but I never really fulfilled my promise, which was to work on this, finish, not finish, but work on decorating the docks some more, put some more cranes and things in, and I also want to put some more boats in the water. So I think that's what we're going to work on next, is just setting this up to feel like more of a docks area and less of like a waterfront walkway, because that's what this is supposed to be, is like a big waterfront road. This is going to be, I want this to feel more of like a, an actual functioning port. So yeah, I think we're going to work on some cranes and other things like that. Maybe some more, or obviously some more like piers and stuff out here, and some more ships in the water too. However, before we get started on working on the harbor, there's something that I said I'd do at the beginning of every month, and it is now the 1st of February, so I think it's time we take down these maps. First off, we have to copy them. So, copy that one, and copy this one. And then we have to go lock them. And I actually forgot my glass panes, so I gotta go grab those. Alright, so these are the two locked copies, I believe. Yes, those are the two locked copies. And you can really see how the base has changed, or the town, I guess, has changed. This is the map before even the castle existed here. And this is the map now, so definitely a very large difference. Oh my gosh, this is actually crazy to look at. This is kind of surreal. Okay, but we got a harbor to work on. Okay, so I say the first thing we do is just work on expanding this pier a little bit. I don't know the proper term for this, actually. I think it's, I'd assume it's called a pier, but I don't, or maybe a boardwalk or something like that. But I don't exactly know what the proper term for that is, but I'm just going to call it the pier. And I just have a bunch of spruce slabs and some campfires, just to build it up a bit more, because right now it's fairly small. I don't see a lot of larger ships or multiple large ships pulling up to this pier, so I'm just going to build probably a few more sections of it, coming off of here, and then also probably extend this one out a bit further. It's just when I was building this, I actually ran out of campfires. That's why it's not fully complete right now. So I've been using jungle logs as little support pillars for the little pier out there. Just a few of them, just a few jungle log pillars, just because jungle logs look like they're a bit mossier. Like if you look at them, they have this almost greenish sort of moss texture on them. So I really like how that looks, and I just think it's a neat, change from all the much more brown logs that we've been using. Jungle logs have a bit more of a green tone, and they have that sideways texture instead of the vertical texture, which I think looks nice. However, I have 9 jungle logs left. Not too big of a deal, but it's just a little bit annoying. However, it's probably not going to affect the build process too much because it's all under the water, so I can just not use them for now. Okay, so I didn't really have enough room to make this pier section any longer than it already is, because if you just do the rough estimates, a large ship, like, a large galley or something, would probably take up this entire area between this island and this pier here. So it would probably have to dock somewhere like here, which is what I already envisioned. I already envisioned the ships kind of docking parallel to these, not kind of docking right here, because that wouldn't really make too much sense. But it's definitely quite a tight space with this island here. I imagine we'll probably remove this sometime in the near future, considering that it's making the waterways here quite small, and if we remove it, it pretty much turns this entire area into a giant lake, which is a big benefit. It'll require quite a bit of terraforming because we'll also have to make the water deeper, but that would be quite beneficial to have this entire area be much deeper, and without this island here. We'll still have that little peninsula back there, but it'll be fine. I think the next thing I'd like to work on, though, is just adding a few more of these cranes. I really like this crane design, and I think it's it just adds, it makes it feel much more alive when you add things like this, things that you imagine humans operating. So I think we're just going to add a few more cranes around here and see where that takes us. Okay, so I've just gotten this one crane set up over here. Not really anything special, just one simple little crane over here. But I think it adds quite a nice effect and fills in some much needed space. So, very nice. And I also think that having it a bit lower down kind of just shows that it's picking up something, whereas this one is probably, you know, moving this cargo. This one's just picking it up, sort of reeling it in. A little bit of dynamic sort of movement in the cranes. But the next thing I think I want to work on is I want to build a ship. I am not the kind of guy who you ask to build your boats, so I'm extremely nervous about this because I've never been good at building boats. But I just want to build like some sort of larger trade ship here, some sort of like caravel looking ship, sort of looking like it's bringing in large amounts of goods, because it's only got a couple barrels on it. I want this ship to feel like it's bringing in large quantities of goods. So I don't even think we're going to do this in the form of a time lapse. I thought we'd do that, but I'm so nervous about this, and I feel like I'm going to mess it up so bad that I want to be able to like do it without having to have you watch me mess up. So I don't think we're gonna do this in the form of a time lapse, but I'll get back to you guys with a progress update. Alright, so after about an hour of building, I've come up with this, and I'm reasonably happy with this sort of base for the ship. There's no mast, no sort of little room back there like a lot of caravels had, and I haven't even started on the sails yet. And I do realize that this is way too close to the docks, but just for the purpose of this video and when I want to get this video out, I think I'm probably going to move this back off camera. So, fun. I get to completely reconstruct this ship again, but no, I'm probably just going to move this back off camera because of when I want to get this video released. But now I'm just going to work on the sails and that little back chamber back there. And then we'll pretty much be done with this ship, because this is a fairly simple trade ship. It's not anything gigantic. It's actually probably still fairly small by, you know, shipping standards, you know, by standards even from back in those days. But it's reasonable for the amount of space that it's supposed to take up, and it just fills the space quite nicely. So I'm pretty happy with how this is coming together, and of course we can probably put some larger ships in the harbor at some point in the future, but this is just a nice starting point, you know? You know, this sort of view of the ship with all the scaffolding around it really made me think we should have a shipyard in town. I think just having a little section of the harbor where they're constructing ships is really cool, because seeing the, you know, an unfinished product makes it feel like the town's, you know, there's people working on things in the town. The town's not just a bunch of finished products, because that's how real towns are. There's always something under construction, something like that. So having a little shipyard with ships under construction, maybe even some under construction buildings, would be really cool, sort of showing that the town's still growing and that there's stuff going on, and it's not just kind of like a completed product, you know? Okay, so I'm actually super happy with how this tied up sail look is coming together. I think the mask may be a bit too high, but we'll see about that in the near future, because I have a little surprise for you guys at the end of the episode. Okay, folks, so I'm actually super happy with how this whole ship has come together. I said I was going to move it back, but I don't think that's what I'm actually going to do, because I think it's just this little piece right here. I don't exactly know what it's called, but I think this little piece right here, sort of coming up over the main port, or the main harbor, just sort of looks cool. So I don't think I'm actually going to move this ship back. And I'm just really happy with how the whole shape of this ship has come together. Boy, that's a tongue twister. But I also think that the sails sort of being tied up like that, I mean, first of all, that's what you do. Like, you tie up the sails when the ship is docked like this, because you wouldn't want, the sails sort of blowing in the wind, stuff like that. So it makes more sense to have the sails tied up, and I also just think it's like a nice organic shape. But, remember how I said we were going to have a little surprise? I'm going to have Too Much Mustard, who currently sails. He actually sails in real life. I'm going to have him tell me how poor of a job I did creating a realistic looking ship. So we're going to get him on a Discord call, and he's going to tell me if I actually did as bad as I think I did, because I don't think this is actually a realistic ship. But we're going to have him tell me how good of a job I did on this ship. If I did a good job, if I did a bad job. And I'm a little nervous because, again, he actually sails in real life, so I'm a little nervous for what he has to say about my ship. But it's a Minecraft ship, so it can... We're bending the laws of physics. Wait. I think that might be trademarks. I gotta go look that up. Also, I'm thinking about swapping out the floor material for oak, since the ship is primarily this very saturated dark oak color. Like, even the spruce logs are the same color as the dark oak. So I'm thinking about swapping them out, so I'm thinking about swapping the floor out for oak instead of dark oak to provide a bit of contrast. It looks nice. So I might do that in the future, but right now I'm pretty happy with how this whole ship looks. I forgot to put those slabs up here. Yeah, there we go. So we're just gonna get Too Much Mustard on a Discord call and see what he has to say about my ship. Okay, so I made a boat, and I pretty much just want you to tell me what I did wrong. I know that sounds strange, but I know there's probably something that I did wrong, and I want you to tell me, because I know you sail, so you probably understand boats better than I do.
It's okay. But it's just looking at it, it's a little short.
Like lengthwise,
yeah.
It's a little short. Okay,
like
right.
Maybe come out to like this island, like you're like this is like maybe I don't know.
Okay, yeah, this island's probably gonna be gone soon anyway, so I'm not too worried about hitting it or anything.
All right.
And
but
anything else that anything else that's wrong here? Because I don't know. I don't understand ships extremely well. I just kind of went off what I thought looked cool, because that's pretty much what this is about. So I don't understand ships very well, but I want realism. So
I mean, it looks pretty good. Other than it's short. I'm sorry, but it's that. Yeah.
Yeah, I made a boat that it's like if it was a human it would be short, except it's a boat, so it's not a human. So yeah. All right, have a nice day being invisible. Bye.
Oh, yeah. Bye.
This is very concerning. Why would... Uh-oh. Okay, folks, so what Too Much Mustard pretty much told us is that my boat needs to be longer, which is not something I was expecting to hear. I thought he was going to say it needs to be shorter, so that's a relief. I could probably just extend this back cabin out a bit further, to be honest. It wouldn't really hurt the visuals of or wouldn't really hurt the aesthetic very much, and it would make it more realistic. And there's one thing that I realized I could probably add for a bit of realism that he didn't mention, and it's just a very quick thing. And I'll just grab the materials to show you guys real quick. I actually only learned this after watching a documentary about sort of the anatomy of a ship from back in the day, and it's basically that they'd put gravel or sand at the bottom of ships, like at the bottom of the hull, to keep them from capsizing. Because if you just think about a ship's sort of anatomy, it's fairly narrow, and it's a lot taller than it is wide. So if they didn't put that at the bottom, making it so at the bottom, it was bottom heavy, it would capsize most likely, or turn over on its side. So the gravel sort of just weighs the bottom down, preventing the whole ship from just turning on its side and causing some very large problems, because that would be very unfortunate if this ship that I've now spent the last 6 hours constructing sunk. So Yeah, but other than that, Too Much Mustard's feedback was very legitimate and very valid. I realized, yeah, the ship is quite English. The ship is quite short, so yeah, probably going to extend the back out a little bit, or maybe the front. I don't know. Probably the back though, since this is already very close to the docks here. But other than that, I think this is actually a perfect time to wrap up today's episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. My name, as always, has been VoidDoctor. Please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye for now.